As disappointing as it was to be challenged for taking the kind of action that other administrations have taken, the country was looking to the Supreme Court to resolve the important legal questions raised in this case. Today, the Supreme Court was unable to reach a decision. This is part of the consequence of the Republican failure so far to give a fair hearing to Mr. Merrick Garland, my nominee to the Supreme Court.
That, of course, the president describing his frustration about immigration. High Court's deadlock upheld an appellate court's ruling that blocked the president's executive action. That action would have prevented deportation of up to 5 million undocumented immigrants. And joining us now to discuss, immigration attorney Christopher Cabanillas. Christopher, good talking to you as always. Okay, we'll get into the political of it, and obviously there's a debate about, well, the makeup of the High Court. Without that ninth justice, we'll have this. But from a more immediate basis, the folks that were in limbo, put a face on them. We're talking up to 5 million people, but that's just a number. Who are these people, and what could the ruling or non-ruling mean for them?
These were parents. So what you have is, you have people that had some sort of status here, and they want to now try to apply for their parents to get some status, to finally get, working papers, a Social Security card, maybe a license, and actually come out of the shadows into the world, and they can't. And these are something that, their kids are in this world, are in our system, but their parents aren't. And so this really just, came from a big shock.
So I'm going to use an example and tell me if I got it right. Parents that came here, kids are either born here or came here when they were little kids, 3 or 4 years old. Kids are now in school systems. Kids are part of the American fabric. Parents in the shadows. But if the parents get deported, what happens to the kids? Who's going to look after the kids?
Well, that is going to be a big problem. They're going to have to make a plea and ask for a waiver to stay. It's going to be a big problem for them to do that. But, what's more likely to happen, though, given that they can't deport everybody, is that simply they're just going to remain in the shadows as they had this entire time, and we're not going to get anywhere. So nothing's going to move forward. The status quo is going to remain, but, that glimmer of hope that was there, that Obama, that he really made with that decision, it got taken away.
Are there some fears from some of these folks, hey, if the guy with the red or white hat, depending on the day, is the president, I might be deported? Are there concerns that it's not just status quo, but it could be worse?
Without question. I mean, there's a lot of, anti-immigrant rants going on right now. There's a big group of the people, a lot of the Trump supporters, especially thinking that, it's time to get these people out, and they feel it, and they're starting to rally around Hillary and the movement to sort of for immigration. But again, they're also, they're weary of it. They've been told for years that something's going to get done, and it just seems like there's been a deadlock forever, and nothing actually is going to get done.
I know you followed this case. Were you surprised it ended in a deadlock or no?
I was hopeful that there might be some sort of a switch, but it was just from the deliberations that went on and the questions that were being asked, it didn't look like Roberts was going to switch over. So, there's a 4-4 tie. At the end of the day, it's really an indecision more than it was a decision.
Yep.
And so, we'll see what happens when the Supreme Court justice actually does get put in, or if perhaps they'll make some, actual laws.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that.
Yeah. What's the practical application of the ruling? If an undocumented parent gets stopped by police, they get put in the ICE system and they wind up in the track towards deportation. Does ICE now have to process this and begin to move towards deportation, or can they still be sort of stuck? I mean, what happens now?
Yeah. Well, again, remember what was going to happen was that this was basically going to be a way for them to basically get if you will, a sort of a get out of jail free card, right? They were going to get something that said not so much that they had status, but something that said that they couldn't be kicked out. So really, that's what they were going to get now. Without that now, sure, if they were to get stopped, if they were to be looked into, they could be
Is ICE
removed.
required to push towards deportation in a case like that?
Well, there's discretion. There's discretion that happens there.
Scott, from a legislator perspective, does the ruling, I guess in a certain degree, make things a little bit harder for the counties or even for the state levels, which is, all right, to put a period on this thing. Now all of a sudden there's an expectation that we do something about it because there really still is more limbo now.
Well, there's been limbo, as Chris points out. It doesn't really change much. And if you take the issue aside of immigration, this is a correct ruling. I mean, the president overstepped his bounds.
In terms of an executive
In
order.
terms of executive order and creating a law, that Congress should have done. And from my point of view, Congress should do something about it because it's an absolute mess. In the meantime, all of us, however we sit on the immigration issue, continue on with this kind of nowhereness where people don't know what to expect. The president was trying to go around them to get something done. To that extent, he deserves credit. He can't do it that way, though. I mean, that's and although it was indecision at the Supreme Court, it's not an indecision because it upheld the appellate court, which said he overstepped his bounds.
True, but remember, that was the Fifth Circuit. It's a very conservative circuit. And there's some talk that perhaps if the Department of Justice wanted to step up, they could push to try to get it perhaps in the Second Circuit or the Ninth Circuit overturned.
Now, you don't know, but if Scalia had been there, it would have been 5-4 decision, and so there's no question it would have been.
But he wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
So Dominic, obviously this comes into a political spectrum. If this is an election issue, the president already said not only obviously disappointed about the ruling here, but this is what happened when no one does anything. If Democrats choose to make this a political issue between now and November, obviously targeting, saying to the Latino voter, we're with you, does that also embolden maybe some of the folks that aren't crazy about Trump, but they're also not crazy about the state of immigration in America?
Well, it's funny because I was looking at it from the perspective of the Latino community. The Latino community doesn't need any, this is just added energy to turn out in record numbers. They already have enough in terms of Donald Trump to motivate them. In terms of the Latino community, we're hearing of mass, if you will, registration and enrollment and party politics. I don't really see this pushing Trump's base necessarily, but at least it gives cover, as I believe the county legislator, the county executive was just referring to. Obama can say he tried to the Latino community. He made a Supreme Court judge go down in history, the first Latino, and he can say to the community, and this is important because it should help Hillary Clinton in terms of saying to the Latino community, I'm there for you. They already know where Donald Trump stands.
But Scott articulated the conservative and the Republican argument on this pretty well, that this wasn't about immigration, this is about an executive action and overreach. So I think that Dominic's absolutely right. This will help activate the Democratic base, and this will certainly help activate Latino voters. But I don't think this is going to peel back any voters from Trump's camp, and I don't know if this moves the needle in the middle all that much.
Well, Christopher, I'll let you have the final word on this one, and I'll take you out of the legal world and into the political. Do you think we're going to look back after that Tuesday in November and say, my God, the number of Latinos as a demographic who turned out and voted in this election, huge, just like we did 8 years ago with African Americans and the youth who turned out in huge numbers for Barack Obama. Do you think that people are maybe underestimating how many Latinos will turn out and vote one way?
Without question. They're completely rallying against Donald Trump. I mean, he is just vilified.
You think it'll translate into registration and to votes?
Absolutely.
Really? Interesting. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. All right.